All right, welcome to the Carl Jackson Show. This is your daily dose of objective truth in a world of confusion and lies. I want you to hear me, and I want you to hear me loud and clear for those of you patriots that are in the listening audience. Illegal aliens must not be allowed to piggyback off of the plight of African slaves in order to benefit Democrat politicians. Hear me again. Illegal aliens must not be allowed to piggyback off of the plight of African slaves in order to benefit Democrat politicians. I want to talk to you about birthright citizenship. One of the major stories that I believe didn't get enough press this week is this issue where Senate Democrats want to bring forth, if you will, birthright citizenship. All right. They're fighting for this. They're also fighting to end the Electoral College, which is a huge mistake. But I want to focus on birthright citizenship. And I want you to understand that I believe that this is a new slave trade. And I don't think I'm being hyperbolic, because I sincerely believe that Democrats, they don't just want a permanent underclass. They want people to come in to this country in order to work slave labor. I don't even think they mind if a lot of these people remain in the shadows, as long as they can count them in the census and build up their congressional numbers and build up their power base as they continue to give a lot of these people welfare. They have no intention to look out for the best interests of a lot of these illegals that are entering into the country. They want them to do their work. They want them to receive benefits. They want wealth redistribution. They want to take from us. They want to give to as many of them as possible. And they really don't want a lot of these people to be able to live out the American dream. I'm totally convinced of that. I'm convinced that this is a sort of new slave trade for the Democrat Party. So I want to take you to a column that I read earlier in the week, and I thought it was fascinating, from a website called Just Facts Daily. I want to make sure that I give them, attribution for this. But the column was entitled, "The Constitution Does Not Grant Birthright Citizenship to the Children of Illegal Immigrants." And I want to take you through this because it's very, very important. And it's not just this column. I've read about this before. I've talked about this before on my show. I've talked about this, quite frankly, off and on for years. But I can see that the left is really, really pressing this. And it's going to be important for you to be able to be armed, metaphorically speaking, those of us that are patriots, those of us that want to make sure that we have secure borders, those of us that want to make sure as many of these illegal aliens that have invaded our country are deported. I'm telling you, things are going to get very hard once Trump is in office. You're going to have to be ready to make an argument as to why it's important for many people to leave. But it starts with the 14th Amendment, a misinterpretation, and I believe intentionally so, when it comes to the 14th Amendment. I want to remind you of a video of an interview that Trump had with Kristen Welker of NBC, Meet the Press. Gabe, let's run video clip number 2. They talk about birthright citizenship. She presses President-elect Donald Trump. Here's the video.
You promised to end birthright citizenship on day one. Is that still your plan?
Yeah, absolutely.
The 14th Amendment, though, says that, quote, all persons born in the United States are citizens. Can you get around the 14th Amendment with an executive action?
We're going to have to get a change. We'll maybe have to go back to the people, but we have to end it. We're the only country that has it.
Through an executive action?
You know, we're the only country that has it. Do you know, if somebody sets a foot, just a foot, 1 foot, you don't need to, on our land, congratulations, you are now a citizen of the United States of America. Yes, we're going to end that because it's ridiculous.
Through executive action?
Well, if we can, through executive action. I was going to do it through executive action, but then we had to fix COVID first, to be honest with you. We have to end it.
All right, so that was Donald Trump speaking with Kristen Welker over the issue of birthright citizenship. So I'm going to lay down a lot of facts for you, okay? So the legislative history of the 14th Amendment is absolutely and emphatically clear that it only grants birthright citizenship to the children of people who are legally and permanently living within the United States. This does not apply to illegal aliens. It doesn't apply to temporary residents. It doesn't apply to visitors. It doesn't apply to tourists. As a matter of fact, it's amazing to me because it's really the left. They talk about disinformation and misinformation, but these are the people that are intentionally misinforming their voters and American citizens, and they're conning them because these are a bunch of open border advocates who want nothing more than to use illegal aliens for their own benefit, for their own power. And it's all about that. A lot of this confusion stems from an 1898 SCOTUS ruling, Supreme Court of the United States, that muddied the waters. But that ruling is absolutely flawed, and we'll get into that in just a second. As a matter of fact, this columnist writes, not only was that ruling flawed on multiple levels, and it could justifiably be superseded by the current Supreme Court. So let me give you a little history on the birthright citizenship issue. In 1866, shortly after the Civil War ended and slavery was abolished, you had a group of congressmen called the Radical Republicans. That's very important, all right, because this is history that isn't taught, unfortunately, today in many of America's classroom. But they passed a civil rights law to ensure that African Americans had the full and equal, and I'm quoting, the full and equal benefit of all laws and proceedings for the security of person and property as enjoyed by white citizens. Again, I am directly quoting the Radical Republicans of 1866. So this law applied to former slaves. It did not apply to foreigners. And thus, it stated this, and I'm quoting from the 14th Amendment: all persons born in the United States and not subject to any foreign power, excluding Indians not taxed, are hereby declared to be citizens of the United States. So to guarantee that the Civil Rights Act of 1866 that we don't learn about in history, or many students don't learn about in history classes because it involved the Republican Party, all right, radical Republicans fought for, and they secured the 14th Amendment. As you know, the 13th Amendment freed slaves. The 14th Amendment gave slaves or freed men at this point citizenship, and the 15th Amendment gave former slaves or freed men the right to vote. So it was the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution in 1868, and this amendment, or the amendment that the amendment mimics the act and states this. This is the birthright citizenship clause that the left counts on. They read into this this way: all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. So that's the pro or open borders advocates. That's how they mimic the clause. All right. But you have to understand the word born means citizens, all persons born. That's citizens. Naturalized, they're talking about legal status. So here's the left-wing interpretation. Again, under the current prevailing narrative or interpretation, I believe that it is a narrative. I believe that these left-wing radicals, in my opinion, know exactly what's going on. Children born in the U.S. to illegal immigrants, temporary residents, visitors, and tourists automatically become U.S. citizens. That's what they believe. I want you to understand the benefits that we're giving to many of these illegal aliens that are invading our country. These illegal aliens are eligible for all state and federal welfare benefits. Not the American dream. Not the American dream. But federal welfare benefits and state benefits. You've seen it in some of these blue cities, New York, so on. And they're also food stamps are available to them, housing, home, energy, child care, and health insurance, all for crossing the border, all for stepping 1 foot into the border. They can vote in U.S. elections, and we're talking about eventually children that become essentially they have this birthright citizenship. These are all of the benefits that they're privy to. They can vote. All right. It also shields if an illegal immigrant, if an illegal alien drops a child inside of the United States, and that child is automatically a citizen, what happens is that child basically shields their parents from deportation. So as many on the left said, oh, you don't want to separate families, do you? First off, it was Obama that started that policy. And frankly, he was justified to do so because when a lot of illegal aliens were bombarding and invading our country, even during his administration, many of them, many adult males and even females were lying, saying this kid was mine. All right. So that they could get into the country more easily, so that the Border Patrol agents, that the Obama administration would have mercy and have compassion on them. They had to separate the adults and the kids to make sure they weren't being trafficked or used as mules. So it was actually necessary. It was actually a good thing. And they were only separated for probably a couple of hours while there was a quick hearing or the Border Patrol agents tried to figure out who belonged to who was with who. All right. But these children are able to shield their parents from deportation. Another thing that you need to be aware of is that children that are born here born to illegal aliens can end up sponsoring their relatives to become legal permanent residents and U.S. citizens. How crazy is that? In 2009, the Pew Research estimated that 73% of children of unauthorized immigrants were U.S. citizens. I've got more when we come back. We're talking about birthright citizenship. I'm Carl Jackson. We'll be back in a few. Hey, Carl Jackson here for MyPillow. Guys, Christmas is only 8 days away. MyPillow is excited to announce that their Christmas extravaganza is finally here. Get this season's flannel sheets for as low as $59.98. They won't last long, so get them while supplies last. They're famous My Slippers. These haven't been on sale for over a year. They're regularly priced at $119.98, but for a limited time, you can get them for $59.98. And their 6-piece towel sets are back in stock with extremely limited quantity, so act fast. They're only $29.98. With hundreds of MyPillow products, there's something for everyone on your Christmas list, from bathrobes to duvets, quilts, down comforters, and so much more. Go to MyPillow.com or give them a call at 800-858-0263 and be sure to use the promo code CARL to save on all of MyPillow products. That's promo code CARL. Their flannel sheets are as low as $59.98. Their 6-piece towel set, again, $29.98. And that's not all. They're extending their 60-day money-back guarantee until March 1st of 2025, plus all orders $75 or more ship absolutely free. MyPillow.com, promo code CARL. All right, welcome back to the Carl Jackson Show. Please make sure you follow us on all things social media, particularly X, Instagram, and Facebook, at Carl Jackson Show or at The Carl Jackson Show. Also, subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Carl Jackson Show. The same is true for Rumble or wherever you go to get your podcast, The Carl Jackson Show. Getting back to this issue of birthright citizenship. Now, remember, we played the video for you earlier on of Kristen Welker grilling President-elect Donald Trump on the issue of birthright citizenship. What I didn't tell you at the time and what I want to delve into right now, if you remember, Kristen Welker pressed Donald Trump on the issue. She asked if on his first day in office, if he was going to end birthright citizenship. And he said, yeah, absolutely. Thank God President Trump stood strong. He meant what he said. Welker challenged Trump again. And she said, the 14th Amendment, though, says that, quote, all persons born in the United States are citizens. Can you get around the 14th Amendment with an executive action? Now, she was pressing the president. He may have not caught that, but she says all persons born in the United States are citizens. That's not what the 14th Amendment said. She intentionally, I believe, and so does the left, they intentionally omit the words, the operative words, subject to the jurisdiction thereof. Subject to the jurisdiction thereof. So all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens. All right. So all of legacy media parrots that very same talking point. Hillary Clinton even came out and said birthright citizen is enshrined in the Constitution. Trump may want to read it. No, Hillary, you may want to read it. But you know what? I think Hillary knows exactly what she's doing. She knows exactly what she's saying. All right. You had other media outlets from the corporate media parroting the same thing. I'm talking about New York Times, Washington Post, USA Today, PolitiFact, CBS News. all of these outlets parroted the same thing. Now, let me give you some facts, some determinative facts on the issue of the 14th Amendment and how the left purposely, intentionally confuses, lies, misinforms their voters. The Democrat Party does in order to usher in more illegal immigrants. And you know why? I think part of this does have to do with the Electoral College. The left realizes that they can never win national elections based on their ideas. All right. Their ideas aren't popular. They can't win the nationwide elections without some serious scrutiny because their policies absolutely stink. So what better way than to win national elections than to usher in illegal aliens? And even if you pack them in your states, in blue states, if you will, then the census counts them regardless in these blue states, not unlike the red states. The census will count them in blue states, or Democrats will count them as part of the census in their blue states, and they'll get more congressmen and they'll just run Congress. And this is what the left wants to do. It's all about power. But here's what you need to know. Let me give you some history. On May 30th of 1866, Republican, all right, I'm saying that intentionally, Senator Jacob Howard of Michigan is the one that introduced the 14th Amendment in the U.S. Senate, and he defined the phrase. This is very important. When he introduced the 14th Amendment, that is Senator Jacob Howard of Michigan, a Republican, a radical Republican. So when he introduced the 14th Amendment, he defined the phrase subject to the jurisdiction thereof. All right. He defined it. He defined exactly what he meant. He said, and I'm quoting, speaking of subject to the jurisdiction thereof, he stated, this will not, operative word, of course, include persons born in the United States who are foreigners, aliens who belong to the families of ambassadors or foreign ministers accredited to the government of the United States, but will include every other class of persons. All right, so you have some scholars like Tufts University Professor Daniel Drenzer, who argued that the words foreigners, aliens, ambassadors, and foreign ministers are merely, quote, synonyms to describe the same category of individuals, namely the children of foreign officials, close quote. Drasner's claim is transparently false. He's lying because the meanings of the word foreigner and alien include illegal immigrants, while ambassador and foreign minister do not. Moreover, the differences between the first two words and the last two are so great that a total of 198 synonyms provided by Power Thesaurus for foreigner and alien don't include ambassador or foreign minister. Hat tip to the columnist for that point. Furthermore, the senators debated the meaning of the phrase subject to the jurisdiction, quote unquote, after Howard introduced the amendment, and Howard further explained. Again, this is Senator Jacob Howard, a radical Republican from Michigan, in May 30th of 1866, when he introduced the 14th Amendment to give freedmen citizenship. So here's what he wrote. He said, the word jurisdiction, as here employed, ought to be construed as to imply a full, complete jurisdiction on the part of the United States, coextensive in all respects with the constitutional power of the United States, whether exercised by Congress, by the executive, or by the judicial department. He goes on, that is to say, the same jurisdiction in extent and quality as applies to every citizen of the United States now. Certainly, gentlemen cannot contend that an Indian belonging to a tribe, although born within the limits of a state, is subject to this full and complete jurisdiction. As ratified, the Birthright Citizenship Clause contains the exact words proposed by Howard. Hence, there can be no doubt that it means exactly what the author said it means. Now, Dresner quotes other snippets from the U.S. Senate debate as if they determine the meaning of birthright citizenship, but they're just lying. Let me take you to a Supreme Court case, a precedent that was set. It goes all the way back to 1873. You may have heard this story before, but I'll wrap it up in the last few minutes of this segment. And then we're going to talk about some of Trump's picks, some of Trump's nominees. And we're also going to talk about why it may be a good idea to sue some of these media outlets that intentionally interfered in the election, I believe, with Breonna Lyman of the Federalist. So you guys make sure you stay tuned for that. She'll be in the next segment. And then we'll talk to a gentleman from the American Principles Project in the last segment about some of Trump's nominees. All right. But anyway, this Supreme Court precedent, it occurred in 1873. You guys may have heard this before. A baby named Wong Kim Ark. He was born in San Francisco to Chinese immigrants who were, very important words, who were legally living in the U.S. and had, quote, established and enjoyed a permanent domicile and residence therein, close quote, but were not U.S. citizens. They were permanent residents, but they were not U.S. citizens. So when Ark, the young man, was 21 years old, he took a trip to China, but was denied re-entry to the U.S. because laws enacted in 1882 and 1888 prohibited Chinese laborers from entering the U.S. And customs officials decided that Ark wasn't a U.S. citizen because his parents were not. So Ark sued, and the case went to the Supreme Court. Ark won a 6-2 decision issued in 1898. The majority declared that the 14th Amendment grants citizenship to, quote, all children here born of resident aliens. In other words, permanent, legal, resident aliens, with limited exceptions like diplomats, occupying enemy forces, and members of Indian tribes. Conflictingly, however, the majority also wrote that the 14th Amendment phrase, subject to the jurisdiction thereof, only applies to people who, quote, are permitted by the U.S. to reside here. This plainly excludes illegals, unauthorized immigrants, and tourists who don't live in the United States. So this case refers to legal and permanent residents, yet you will hear the left hearken back to it all the time. We cannot let them get away with this. This is a faulty, a fake, and an intentionally misleading argument to say, like Kristen Welker did, and to push Donald Trump. Okay, well, the 14th Amendment, the 14th Amendment says that all persons born in the United States are citizens. No, it does not. It says nothing of the sort. So you have to ask yourself, what is the left up to? I suggest that the left is up to a new type of slave trade. And I don't say this to be hyperbolic. They don't care about these people. They want to use these people for their own power and for their own benefit to enrich themselves and get rich off of the back of these illegal aliens. Meanwhile, they don't care what happened to blacks either, if we're being honest. But what you cannot let the left do, especially those of you that might be Democrats tuning in, you have to understand this. You cannot allow illegal aliens to piggyback off of the plight of African slaves, especially to benefit Democrat politicians. My name is Carl Jackson. We'll be back with Breonna Lyman of the Federalist.